Okay, so hope the AC running in the background isn't bothering you guys. As requested, someone wanted to know my story and how I wound up using Amanita. So it'll be in parts, depending on how long it is. I'll try to edit it and keep it concise. So I didn't know until recently that I am autistic. And so I had anxiety most of my childhood. I had my first panic attack when I was 12. Lived obviously with a lot of shaming and guilting. Got into therapy in my early 20s. A lot of shaming and guilting by therapists. I wound up leaving therapy after 8 years because I did change and fix a lot of things from my childhood and abuse, and learned a lot of things, healthy things. But there were a lot of things about me that couldn't be changed, and I was shamed for those things. And I just left feeling broken. Still dealing with anxiety. I've tried everything that you can try, every medication, lots of behavioral therapy things and EMDR and stuff like that, lots of meditation, and it would help a little bit, but then, it would always come back and then just keep getting worse with every passing year. And, as life experiences got harder, and just the accumulation of having to mask as an autist and then melting down and causing destruction, and then the shame and guilt from that, and just it builds on itself. And I went through a traumatic event with a natural disaster that devastated our finances, hurt my children financially. It was hard, the realizing that I wasn't prepared and having to watch my children go hungry, FEMA not being there, insurance companies and the games that they played, relocating, filing bankruptcy. It was all very painful, and I left that with a lot of PTSD. And a couple of years after it, I was just in the corner and not functional anymore, just complete agoraphobic and in full fight or flight and couldn't function. So I wound up going to a psychiatrist who put me on the strongest benzodiazepine at the highest dose, and that was Klonopin. And I didn't know what I was doing and in for at the time. Klonopin, man. But got on Klonopin, and while it did kill the panic, it just killed me, and I was lethargic and couldn't function. I couldn't brain. Well, along with being an autist comes having a high IQ, and obviously I value intelligence, my degree in science, my years as an educator, and having a really quick mind. It's how I get by in the world, and it's what I valued most. And very quickly that was just taken away. It was like just a medical intelligence lobotomy, and it was very shameful and hard to get by. But honestly, I was in so much pain and non-functional. I was happy for the relief, happy to be able to sleep and eat, but I couldn't drive, I couldn't take care of my kids, I couldn't do anything. So I quickly started backing off on the dose and just living with some level of anxiety. And just 1 year turned into 2, and I kept thinking, I really need to get off this. And every time I tried, the anxiety was so debilitating. And just fast forward into about, 6 or 7 years, and I just said, that's it. I couldn't function anymore. And after that many years being on it, my brain function, I didn't resemble the person I used to be, the way that I could keep so many things in my head. I was living with lists and still failing. And just, it's really, 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 really hot today. It's September, but you wouldn't know it. And it got hard to live being that stupid all the time. And my children were growing up knowing me as a person that just couldn't function, and I didn't like being that kind of a role model. So I got serious about getting off of it. And very quickly I learned how hard that was going to be, because you don't mess with your acetylcholine and gamma aminobutyric acid pathways. That's the fight or flight. That's the thing that, works in your gut and your immune system and your memory. And after I had hijacked that system for so long, my receptors for it were all messed up, and my body didn't know how to use it naturally on its own anymore, and it had depended on Klonopin. So immediately, every time I would drop the dose, just freight train panic, intense muscle spasms to the point of screaming, gastric distress, just constant fear, worrying, my brain working, not working, working, not working. It doesn't sound like much, but when you put it all together, trying to function like that, it's a hell. So I found boards online, groups, people trying to come off of Klonopin, and I learned it's insidious. It's extremely painful, extremely difficult. I learned a tapering technique. I can't think of the name of it right now, but I'll put it in the description. And I got on this woman's method for tapering. I started following it. I stayed in the group and posted, and it was nice. I learned other people were going through the same thing I was, trying to get off of it. And I had sort of come to terms with the fact that I was going to have to live with debilitating panic and anxiety. It was hopeless because I had truly done everything, and I got tired of everyone telling me, well, you just need to, really? You need to get over it. You need to stop being afraid. It's like, really? Wow, that's the advice you've got after a lifetime of panic. I wish I had thought of that. You need to learn some coping skills. Really? Okay, thanks. I'll work on that. But after trying everything and seeing so many psychologists, therapists, meditation, hypnosis, I mean, I was begging for shock therapy, and they said, well, we would if it showed efficacy for anxiety, but it doesn't. So, I mean, I was willing to do anything, and I had realized that I found one of the things that modern science just can't help with. And I thought, you know, we can go to the moon. There's so many things we can fix and cure and deal with. Anxiety just seems like such a basic one. And short of benzodiazepines and the antidepressants, which make it worse, every once in a while make it better until it doesn't after about 3 months. They're like, you know, sorry. I mean, I've had my psychiatrist say, I'm sorry. You know, this is one of the hardest things for us to treat, that and depression. And I thought, you know, then I went through a woe is me and feeling sorry for myself, you know, thing. And then I kind of came out of that and just said, you know what? Everyone's dealing with something. There are people who have more debilitating things than I have and genetic defects, and they're thriving. They're in Special Olympics, and they're making the best of, they're making a damn good life. And if anxiety is all I have to deal with, count me lucky. But still, you know, it's just debilitating every day. So I was 2.5 years into tapering and failing, getting down to just a quarter of a single Klonopin, and living like that for a month and having to go back up to a half and then back up to 3/4 and then finally leveling out there. Having debilitating anxiety and a stupid brain, and this is not working. So I did that up and down. I'm at 8 minutes, so I'm going to end this, and in the next one I'll talk about how I was introduced to Amanita. Sorry if this is boring.